Welcome back to the Legacy Podcast. My name is Olisya Grant, co-founder of Matrix Legacy, Inc. We are back for episode number 20. Guys, we made it all the way to 20. If you are still listening with me, I just want to take a moment to say thank you so very much. I cannot express what an incredible journey this has been so far. And we are just getting heated up. We've committed to at least 52 episodes. So I'm committed. I hope you're committed with me. This is a show where we create a blueprint for success. We look for ways to create generational wealth. And we break those chains of a poverty mindset. Today, I've got a great one for you today because a lot of times when we see interviews or we hear the most successful people in their success story, somewhere along the lines, they speak about the books that they've read. They say, you can tell that you're in a wealthy person's house because you'll see a library of books. You'll see books everywhere. Versus somebody who might have that poverty mindset, you're going to see screens everywhere. Big screen TVs and studios and all of that stuff, because that's really an indicator of what you're feeding to your mind. And when I started this, and when I even came to realize that personal development was something that people could do, it all started with me reading a book that literally opened the floodgates for me. And I'm going to share with you guys today. I was going to do a top 5 and then I couldn't decide which. I could not decide which 5. So I got 6 for you. So if you want to stick around and hear the top 6 books to get you in the right mindset, we're creating a wealthy life. And I want to share with you 6 of the books that have really been pillars in my ability to find success in just about everything that I decide I'm going to be successful in. So before we get into that, I know some of you might have probably already tuned off because you're like, reading, that's not for me. I don't do that. And that's exactly what I said too. When I was very young in grade school, I used to love reading. I would be reading like a book every other day. It was just my favorite. Until you take off into high school and then they start making it mandatory, and then post-secondary reading is just a chore. You get completely turned off, not interested in anything I'm reading. So I really thought that reading just wasn't for me. Then as I started networking more and I started running into more and more successful people, I would just keep hearing them talk about, oh, this is the new book I read. This is how many books I've read this month. Oh, take a look at this little this little paragraph from a book I just read. And it's like, okay, clearly I'm missing something here. Maybe it's time to take a look. What are people reading? How can I get to that level? And what I realized from really now I'm like addicted. It'll be about a book every month, every couple weeks for me, because I really have found the value in reading. And I want to first share it with you, because if you're sitting there thinking, I don't need to read. Reading is not what I do. This might change your mind. So one of the reasons I realized that it's very, very important to read is because, and I'm speaking specifically about nonfiction books, about like personal development, fact-based books. What I've realized, and when we read those nonfiction books, those monologues, those personal development books, what you've got within those 2 covers is somebody's personal experience, somebody's personal perspective on the world, because they've gone through something that they're now able to write about. So if you're about to go on a journey, somebody has already documented their exact journey and what exactly it took for them to get to where they are. They list out all their mistakes, all of the philosophies that they've come up with through going through certain experiences, so you don't have to go and do the same thing yourself, or you don't have to find a way to interpret it because somebody has already done it. So if you're in a position where it's like, I don't know what steps next to take, I don't know what's coming up next, you just crack open a book and it's like literally like a crystal ball. You get to see what's going to be on that journey because somebody has already taken it. Another reason it's important to read is because it really expands your mind. Every time I read a book, even if it's just a paragraph or one single chapter in the entire book, something in it shifts the way that I think in terms of, well, I don't want to give it away because I'm going to give you guys the list of books. But let's say, for example, I open a book and the book is talking about managing your emotions. And maybe I'm in a position where I'm having a hard time dealing with rejection, as we talked about on last week's podcast about facing the fears and failing forward. I got all of that information and insight from a book. And so when I'm in a certain position in my life, if I can read about somebody who has a different perspective and can see my situation from a different angle, well, then now my mind is expanded and I'm looking at this exact same situation in a different way. So that's another reason why it's very, very important to be reading. And a final one that's super major to me that I've really come to realize is you can tell when a person is well read. I have no idea where I heard this quote, but it was something along the lines of garbage in, garbage out, which means if you're feeding your mind with ridiculousness, drama, who's dating who's beefing with who, and trust me, my timeline used to be filled with that stuff because it was entertaining, until I realized that as I'm downloading and processing that information, that drama and those things that I was taking in on a consistent basis were starting to show up in my life. The way that I was speaking was changing, and it's because the things that you see and the things that you see on TV and in movies and on your timeline, start training your brain to spot those things in real life. So if I'm constantly downloading drama and negativity and, all of that not so good stuff, well, then my brain is conditioned to start finding those things in real life. Versus if instead I'm following people who are on their own personal development journeys and people who are really pushing the needle forward and innovating and creating, then I can start spotting my own opportunities and my own abilities to create, because that's what I've downloaded in my mind. So as you read and you become well read, the way that you speak is different, the way that you carry yourself is different, the way you communicate in general, you can really tell when somebody is well read. And so that's why I'm consistently trying to read and make sure that I'm brushing up on my language and my knowledge and expanding my skills, and all of that can be found inside books. So with all that said, I want to really hop in and give you guys some books that I personally loved that have insanely changed the way that I look at success, the way that I look at life, the way that I look at myself, all for different reasons and at different points in my journey. So here we go with book number 1. First personal development book that I ever read was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. That book really opened up my mind to realize that there is a big difference between the haves and the have-nots. And the difference is the way that they look at their situation and the way that they choose to navigate and respond to their circumstances. So you have one side where we do the traditional, go to 9 to 5. I don't want to explain too much because I don't want to ruin it. I truly want you to go read these books. But the contrast that they give in the book is really two different paths. One is going the traditional route, the 9 to 5, depending on some kind of pension or, just working towards retirement with nothing else really. We just go the straight and narrow, what we're taught. Go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and work until retirement. Versus the other side of the coin, which is where you really stray away from that 9 to 5 and start creating businesses and wealth and income in multiple different ways in your life, and just starting to create opportunities for yourself instead of relying on others to create and sustain the opportunities for you. So that really opened my eyes to realize that, hey, there's different ways to make money in this world. Hey, there's different ways to interact and build relationships, and I can think on a larger scale all because of this book. So if you are just getting started in entrepreneurship, or you have any desire to build something outside of your traditional 9 to 5 job, this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, will definitely kick down those doors for you the same way that it did for me. This really started everything that I've been able to build thus far. The next book I would recommend is The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. So a lot of times we don't actually realize that we're thinking small. We believe that we know what we're capable of and we know what our capacity is, but that's just because we're conditioned to think in certain ways. So the magic of thinking big really breaks down those walls and lets you think, okay, if maybe originally your goal was just to open up a clothing store, for example. But the magic of thinking big says, why would you just open up a clothing store? Why would you want to be the best store in the mall when you could be the mall with all of the best stores in it? Because malls don't really go anywhere, right? You never really see a mall close down, but you see stores close down often. So how can you maybe take your store name or your brand name and maybe license it out to other people so they can purchase the right to operate their own business under your name brand in different parts of the world, maybe in different products. Maybe it's not just clothing, maybe you're doing entire outfits, you know what I'm saying? And it really just says you take your small idea and just go crazy with it. This is where you really use your imagination to stretch as far as you can and to reach for as much as you can. And it really teaches you to stop putting limits onto yourself and onto what you're capable of doing. Absolutely phenomenal book. I would definitely recommend. The third book I would recommend for absolutely anybody. I know by the title you might think this is just for salespeople, but this book is for absolutely anybody. It's called The 7 Levels of Selling by Stephen Arnio. Now, he's a big real estate mogul, and he's really mastered the art of selling. And when we think of selling, we think of those like slimy, grimy salespeople, but a lot of what we need to realize is every interaction that we're having on a day-to-day basis is a sale. Whether it's in your relationship, you've got to sell your partner the idea that you genuinely care about them and that you genuinely have the best interest of your relationship at heart. Or you got to sell them on the idea of what to have for dinner tonight or where to go for date night. If you go to a networking event, you got to sell who you are in order for people to buy into who you are so they could eventually buy what it is that you're selling. And so it really walks through, he says there's 7 levels that we have to work through. And what happens is a lot of us, instead of going through each one of the 7 levels to have an efficient and effective sale, we just try to jump right from level 1 to level 7. And that's why we get so many rejections and so many people disappearing on us or not wanting to be around us because we haven't mastered building relationships and going through the actual process and conversation in order to create an effective sale and presentation and etc. It's a phenomenal book. I've read it 3 times. I'm currently reading it again because it really helps me to take a step back and realize how important it is to add value to other people before you could ever ask for something in return. If I haven't shown you that I can add value to your life, there is no way I can expect you to reach in your pocket and say, here, I'm going to add value to your life with my money if I haven't shown them what value they're going to get in return. So that book, phenomenal, definitely recommend. The 4th book, and I'm not going to speak long on this one because I've talked about it 100 times on this show. It's Go for No by Andrea Waltz and Richard Fenton. This book, if you are afraid of rejection, if you are afraid of people saying no, if you are worried about the perception that people will have of you if you fail, this is the book that you need to read. They really teach you how to fail your way to success and teach that the most successful people in the world are also the biggest failures in the world. And so if you need a little mind shift, and if you're getting discouraged because you keep hearing no, or nobody's buying what you're selling, or nobody is on the same page as you with your vision, it might just be because you're afraid of that word no, when really we should be running right into it and learning from our failures as fast as we possibly can. I'm not going to go too far into that because as I said, we've talked about that book so many times. I can't even count how many times I've gone through that book. Phenomenal read. Number 5, I've talked about it also on this podcast before, is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And the gist of that book is that it's not what we do with a lot of passion and a lot of force in a short period of time, but instead it's the little things that we do on a day-to-day basis consistently over a long period of time that actually produce any kind of result. And he's saying it's the tiny little shifts that we make that make the most monumental impacts in our lives. So something like a morning routine. You don't have to start with this elaborate 10-step process, but you can start with something as simple as wake up and drink a glass of water. So if every morning I'm waking up and I'm drinking 1 glass of water, well then that's getting me closer to my goal of being able to drink a gallon a day, or whatever your goals are. But if you just start with those tiny little steps, instead of trying to take it all on in one chunk, then that is the way that we find success. Phenomenal book. Absolutely recommend it. And then the bonus. This is another book that I've read over and over and will probably continue to read over and over. And it's called The Science of Getting Rich. It's by Wallace D. Wattles. And you might think, all right, maybe that's a little much to read a book about getting rich. But it's really everything but money in that book. It really talks about how to create wealth in your life, and I think that's why it resonates so much with me, because that's everything. That's all I want to do, is I want to show people how to truly create wealth in their life. And so it focuses on things such as gratitude and the power of our thoughts and having faith that there is a power bigger than us that is going to pull us through if we give it absolutely everything that we've got. And so it's a short read. I've listened to it over and over. I also purchased the book so I could read it, because reading things on paper is very different than the audio as well. But if the only way that you can consume books is through audio, that is absolutely better than nothing, and I'm not knocking that by any means. So those are the top 6 books that have really pushed me to levels I cannot even explain on my own journey, and I hope that they can help you as well. If you are one of those people who prefer audiobooks, I'm going to leave a link in the description below. It's to an app that I use called Scribe, and I really love this app because they give you the first 2 months for free. So if you just want to test it out and go take a look and see if you can find some of these books on there, I think the only one that might not be on there is Atomic Habits. However, you can get hundreds of audios, hundreds of PDFs and ebooks on there, and also whenever you refer somebody, you get another month for free. So it's a fantastic way to get your friends reading and maybe start a little mini book club, and you guys going through it together. Accountability will definitely help trying to get through these books. So that's essentially the building block of the day, guys. It's super important to read because it expands your mind. It allows you to learn from other people's mistakes. It makes you well-read, so your communication is elevated when you're presenting yourself and as you're out there building your business and building the person that you are. There's so many benefits to reading. So if you're not already doing it, I would suggest maybe putting aside at least 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes if you can, just to hop into a book and see what it is. If you open it and you find out you don't like it, do not force yourself. Because at that point, this is why people get discouraged, because we open the book and we don't like it and we try to force our way through. We don't actually take anything in. And then by the end of it, we're like, well, that was a waste of time. I'm not doing that again. So make sure you try it out. Find a book that resonates with you so you can get all the way through it and just keep building on that. So that's all I've got for the day, guys. If you are interested in some sort of book club, we're actually launching Matrix Legacy Academy, for those of you who haven't already heard or registered. That's happening at the very beginning of August. Inside of Matrix Legacy Academy, we're going to have a book club. We are going to have master classes, live Q&As, a ton of resources and tools for our aspiring entrepreneurs, our side hustlers, and our big dreamers who just need some form of informal mentorship. So if that is you, we've got your back. You can find more information on the Matrix Legacy app in the App Store, or you can reach out to me personally. I will leave all my details in the description box, so you can go ahead and get registered for Matrix Legacy Academy. Outside of that, that is all I've got for the day, guys. I will be here next week with another building block for success. Until next time, let's build a legacy.